Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull out here and taxi up because I don't see anybody else around here. And remember, everything that you do, make sure you look around before you make any move.
This is 33 Delta runway 16 right, intersection Alpha 5, clear for takeoff, bus departure approved.
Okay, clear for takeoff, 16 right, Alpha 5, 33 Delta. Okay, we're clear for takeoff. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look both ways, make sure nobody's coming because you just never know. And then we're going to turn the transponder on. And what the transponder does is it sends a signal to the guys on the ground with their little the radar scopes, and so it bings a little code. Will they tell you where other traffic is? No, they won't. So then I'm coming out here, taxi lights on, landing lights on, and strobe lights on. And again, remember, I'm pulling out onto the runway. I'm going to verify my heading because I have my heading bug set for runway 16. So there is runway 16. The heading looks good, so I'll go ahead. My feet slide down off the brakes, and I just have my top of my toes on the bottom of the pedal. So you go ahead and add the power, and as you do, you have to step on the right rudder because that propeller is spinning to the right and it wants to pull you to the left. We're looking for 55 knots. There's that. Pull back on the control wheel. And that is the defining moment right there. That liftoff, if that doesn't get you, I don't know what will. So now we've accelerated the climb speed to 70 knots. And again, because this propeller out here is spinning around to the right, it wants to pull the nose to the left. So I have to continually add right, keep that right rudder pushed to keep it from the nose sliding off to the left. So pattern altitude of this airport here is 1,600 feet. So I'm climbing straight ahead to 1,300. 300 feet before the pattern altitude, I'll go ahead and make what's known as a crosswind turn. And now I'll go ahead and accelerate up to 80 knots, and we're going to go ahead and climb straight ahead up to 3,000 feet. Whenever I make a turn, I still have to step on that. It's called stepping on the ball, and what it actually is called is an inclinometer. But I don't think your instructor is going to say, please step on the inclinometer. You have the center of the inclinometer. It just doesn't sound right. So what they say is step on the ball. Okay, so now we're climbing up to 3,000 feet, right? So I'm going to go ahead and set my heading bug to a heading of 260 because I like that heading. It takes me in the direction I want to go. And now when you're flying around, remember, I'm climbing based on an airspeed. So I'm climbing now about 90 knots. And it's kind of a cruise climb speed. So when you're doing that, you're not in here looking at the panel going, what's my heading, what's my airspeed, what's my heading, what's my airspeed, are my wings level? This isn't an instrument flight. The whole idea behind VFR flying is that you're looking outside. And the reason behind that is because, like I said, when you take off and you have that transponder turned on, yeah, the radar guys can see you, but that's for instrument flying aircraft. We're not an instrument flying aircraft. We're a VFR, visually flying aircraft. So we have to maintain the separation from other airplanes. That's your primary job, maintaining separation from other airplanes. So that's why the scan starts, it's easier to scan from the left to the right. For whatever reason, the eyeball perceives information better that way. So I usually start in closer, focus my eyes on something close, and scan in sections across, and then I move my eyes out farther and then scan the horizon. Okay, so we're coming up on 3,000 feet. A lot happens on your first flight, doesn't it? That's just the way it works, you know, but it's fun stuff. There's so much information that comes to you when you're first learning to fly. It feels like your head's going to explode. But that's what the beauty of flying is every time you take a lesson, you learn something new and it starts to come together. And it's just a really good feeling. So, okay, we've just leveled off at 3,000 feet, looking around for traffic. It looks good. Beautiful day up here. So now when we're level, we have this thing called a trim wheel. What the trim wheel does is when you're climbing or descending in an airplane, there are forces on the controls that will affect the pressure of the control wheel. Well, I had this thing set for takeoff trim. Remember, I set the trim in the back on the tail for takeoff? Well, when you get to cruise flight, you have takeoff power, you get to 3,000 feet. Now all of a sudden you notice that you have to push forward on the control wheel, you actually have to add 3 or 4 pounds of force to make sure that this thing maintains 3,000 feet. Well, would you want to fly around all day long pushing on the control wheel to maintain 3 or 4 pounds forward to make the thing maintain altitude? And I'm guessing no. So somebody came up with this great thing called a trim wheel. So I'll show you what happens. Let's go ahead. I'm pushing 3 or 4 pounds in the control wheel. I'm straight and level. I'm level at 3,000 feet. And I'm going to go ahead and go 1, 2, and 2 stripes of up trim nose. I pulled it up, but it's called nose down trim. Work. So let's see what happens if I add too much nose down trim. If I add too much nose down trim, that nose will just drop off. See it? So I have to actually pull back on the control wheel to maintain 3,000 feet. Well, if I don't want to fly around all day long pulling back on a control wheel, 3 or 4 pounds of pressure, what can I do? I can trim the nose up. So I trim it nose up. 1, 2. And you can tell that you're in trim when you let go of the airplane. You can let go of the control wheel and you're not going to fall out of the sky. Let me show you that, by the way. Couple ways to fly. Your first couple lessons, I've seen this several times, where you have, let's go ahead and make a left turn here. So you can go ahead and do what's called the death grip. Just looking out for traffic as we're making this turn. Big thing, always looking out for traffic. 99% of my scan is outside. 0.1 is inside, looking at the altimeter and making sure we're good. There's a lot of traffic in this area. So anyhow, I'm going to show you what it is. It's called the death grip. And what the death grip is when you're flying and you got both hands on the control wheel and you're trying to squeeze it, and it just hold the harder the better, you know, because you're so afraid that if you let go of that control wheel that the airplane's going to fall out of the sky. Well, it's not. So let's go ahead and continue around on that 360-degree turn, and I'll show you what happens. We're in a turn right now, right? What do you think's going to happen if I let go of that control wheel? You're just going to roll over and that's the end of Captain Scott here? I don't know. Let's see what happens. Okay, ready? Okay, I'm going to release the death grip. Got the death grip, then I'm releasing the death grip. Whoa. The airplane continues to just turn because I have the airplane trimmed for level flight and it's turning by itself. Beautiful, huh? It's very, very nice. So let's go ahead out here and let's go ahead and shut that up. So you've seen trim, how trim works. If you're pushing forward on it, you want to trim the nose down. If you're pulling back on it, you want to trim the nose up. Okay, so you understand that. Now let's go ahead and set up for a descent. So we'll go ahead, we're cruising along. Let's say we want to descend now. So you can tell level, wings level, by looking out the window, got as much ground out there as I got out here, and you're looking for an attitude, looking at the horizon. The horizon's the stuff that's in front of you. It's the earth, right? So what you want to do is let's go down 500 feet a minute. 2 ways to do it. I can push forward on the control wheel, and that makes the airplane go down. And I can control my rate of descent by pushing forward. The more I push forward, the faster it's going to go down. Right now I'm going down at 500 feet a minute. Well, let's go ahead and level off real quick. That's one way to go down. When you do that way, the airplane airspeed increases. Makes sense, right? Because all of a sudden you got all this power, boom, you're going downhill, and you're going to pick up speed. It depends on what type of airplane you're flying, and I don't want to get too much into it, but I'm just going to assume that one day everybody wants to fly a 747, so I'm going to teach you how to fly this airplane like a 747. So on the 747, do you pitch the nose down like that? Do you just push forward on the control wheel to go down? No, you don't. What you do is you reduce the power. And look what happens when you reduce the power. Holy moly, the nose goes down. Isn't that cool? And the airspeed remains relatively the same. That's how you fly a jet. So even if you're flying a 172 and you want to fly like a pro, like a jet guy, that's how jet guys do it. Okay, let's level off. Again, to level off, I've got wings level, same amount of dirt out there as the same amount of ground out there, looking good. Okay, let's go ahead and climb to 3,000 feet. Well, I'm down here at 2,800 feet, so what I'd have to do is if I just pull back on the control wheel, what's going to happen? And I don't add power. Let's take a look at it. Okay, am I climbing? Yeah, I'm climbing. But what's happening to my airspeed? Give you one guess. It's going slower and slower and slower, right? So, how do you do that? How do you climb and maintain airspeed? Well, remember, we were in cruise flight, so we had cruise power. So let's try this. Let's add power. We pitch back with the wheel to establish the pitch up attitude and then add that power. Now I'm climbing at about 600 feet a minute at 90 knots and the airspeed's not dropping off. I'm maintaining that 90 knots. Prior it was just going 90, 80, 70. So that's how you descend and climb in an airplane, okay? So it's really a function of adding power or removing power from the engine, or just pushing forward or pulling back on the control wheel. But you kind of see pretty quick that really the reality of it is if you want to climb, you add power. If you want to descend, you take the power out, right? So that's how it is. If you need to make a, fine adjustment, 10 feet, 20 feet, 50 feet of altitude on your altimeter, no, you don't adjust the throttle for that. You just actually push forward on the control wheel and trim it out. It's usually you're off altitude just because the airplane's out of trim. And so that's the whole thing, is keeping the airplane in trim. So, okay, we tried that. So let's go ahead and take it. How do we turn this thing? So when you make a turn, before you do any maneuvers out here, you want to kind of lift the wing up and look behind you and look all the way behind you to make sure that it's called a clearing turn, just to make sure that there's nobody out here. So I'm kind of looking all over the horizon to make sure I have no one behind me. It looks good. So I'm going to go ahead. What I want to do is I want to make a turn to the right, but I want to maintain 3,000 feet. What happens when you make a turn? A couple things happen. To maintain altitude in the turn, when you start, we'll make a 30-degree bank turn. That's 30 degrees of angle, 30 degrees of bank. There's 30 degrees of bank. Well, you actually have to pull back on the control wheel. Why? Because the wing is losing lift, and when it loses lift, guess what it wants to do? It wants to descend, right? Okay, so we're in this turn, we're in this 30-degree bank turn, and I'm having to apply this back pressure. Well, you could accept that back pressure, you could trim it out, or what you could normally do, and what every jet pilot in the world does, is add power. What happens when you add power? Nose comes up, right? Whoa, just figured out that. Brilliant. Okay, so I just added power. My airspeed came back up to my cruise speed, a couple knots less, no biggie. But now I'm flying here with no control pressure. So I'll show you what happens. I'll let go of the wheel, 30 degrees, I'll get the 30 degrees of bank. 30 degrees of bank, hands off, man, no death grip. Pretty cool, huh? So that's how it all comes together. Let me remove a little bit of that power. What do you think is going to happen when I pull back on that throttle? Think the nose is going to go down? There it goes. 500 feet a minute descent. Okay, let's go ahead and wings level here. We'll take a look around us again just to make sure that there's nobody out here. Okay, so now we made a right turn. We didn't climb or descend. We didn't want to lose or gain any altitude. But now let's say we're in this thing. We want to start a descending turn. So how do you do that? Well, you just start the turn. You can do one of two things. You can just push forward on the control wheel or actually reduce the power. So let's try it. Let's go ahead and bank the airplane. We've cleared the area. Don't see anybody around us. There's a 30-degree bank. And I'll go ahead and reduce the power by a couple hundred RPM, and I get that nice 500 foot per minute rate of descent. Man, that's just beautiful. Okay, let's say I want to maintain 500. I've got this power setting. I can go ahead and just adjust the control wheel. That's all I'm touching is just this. I want to go down 1,000 feet a minute. I can go ahead and push it down. I want to only just descend at 300 feet a minute. Then I'll pull back on the control wheel. So really, what's the whole point of learning turns and, descents and airspeeds? When you're setting up for landing, That's the whole idea there. So, okay, so we just did this nice descending turn. So we'll go ahead. We're at 2,700 feet. I'm going to level off just to check the area for traffic again. I don't see anybody. There's a really fun airport right over there where everybody goes for the $100 cheeseburger, and that in itself, flying for the $100 cheeseburger, is just worth $1 million. So it's just cool stuff all the way around. Okay, so now we're going to do a climbing right turn. So what we're going to do is we looked around, we're going to look where we're going, nobody up there. So I'm going to go ahead and hitch the nose up and then bank it 30 degrees and then add the power. And so now what am I doing? I'm climbing at 500 feet a minute. When you're doing that, you also remember you have to step on that inclinometer down there. Step on the inclinometer, please. Doesn't really sound so good. Why don't we just say step on the ball? And what I'm referring to is when that ball moves to the right, you step on the right pedal. When it moves to the left, you step on the left pedal. That's what it means. Okay, we're coming up to our 3,000 feet. Let's go ahead and level off. So we lower the nose. We're looking at the attitude on the horizon. And we'll go ahead and we've increased airspeed, and we're going to go ahead and roll out on this heading of 260 degrees. And that is how you climb and descend in an airplane. When you roll into a turn, I'm applying control pressure at 30 degrees of bank, and then I stop. I neutralize the controls. You don't keep turning the control, because obviously the airplane will go into a steeper angle, and eventually flip over. Let's go back to the right. Okay, cranking it around, back to 30 degrees. And every time I'm making a turn, and this is a good maneuver to practice when after you solo, you go out there and do that thing. You start making these turns, and you realize that every time you make a power adjustment, you have to adjust the trim. So that's pretty much it. And again, when you're making turns, let's go ahead and look outside and talk about that turn. So when you're out here and you're making this turn, you're looking at in reference to the horizon. And again, I showed you back there, but let's just pitch the nose up. Am I climbing or descending? Obviously, you can't see the horizon, so I'm climbing. What's this look like? This right here. Am I climbing or descending? We'll just stay in this nice right turn. It's kind of neat to see it from that perspective. Am I climbing or descending? I'm actually in level flight, right? How you tell? Because I don't have a lot of ground. I'm not looking at all sorts of real estate down below me. I'm looking at this area. It's this horizon, line of horizon that I can see all around me. Now let's look at this. Do you think I'm climbing or descending? What's that look like? Yeah, all sorts of real estate, huh? Yeah, big time descent. Okay, let's go ahead, turn left back, head back towards Payne Field and do a landing back there. Isn't this cool? I mean, this is just fun stuff all the way around. It's just mind-blowingly the view we have in here. Mount Baker, some other mountain, something, and then Mount Rainier down there, right? It's just super gorgeous out here. One thing you'll find out when you do take flying lessons is that you're going to be extremely tired when you're driving home from the airport. Don't be surprised by that. Your brain is taxed so hard when you're up here flying. There's so many things that you have to concentrate on. Like I said, the first flight, you get on the ground, you might retain 10% of what you'll remember that it was really cool, but that's about all you remember. You might learn to remember some of the turn stuff, but it takes time, but it does come together quickly. So there are the frustrating moments, and then there's the moments, the aha moments, where you just go, man, I nailed it. And that's what's so exciting about flying. I mean, that's what I still love about it. And to this day, I still strive for that perfection. I mean, you're always continually learning in aviation, and there's so much that you've learned that you a lot of times have to relearn it, and that's just the way it is, But you keep on top of that stuff. That's what makes you a pro pilot. You can approach it two ways. You can approach it, I'm going to learn it, never read a book again, and I'm such a good pilot that I never get any problems. You're probably going to run into some trouble at some point. I'm just saying. You keep on top of things, and new information, new technologies, changes to airspace, that happens all the time. You need to kind of be aware and alert of all these things, and you'll learn all that stuff and where to get that information as time goes on. But really, for the first couple hours, this information that I've just given you right here is enough to get you through first flight. What do you need to know for the first flight? Nothing, and I've told you guys that, but enough people have asked. So, here we are, shooting, flying together today. And that's a pretty cool thing, though. I wish that this existed before, because it is A little bit intimidating, you know, when you go up on the first flight, not understanding what the verbiage is, what the names of the controls are, and that sort of thing. And it gets a little bit overwhelming. So I hope I helped alleviate some of the concern and questions you had about what's going to happen on your first flight. But like I said, it doesn't matter if you're going to be a 7.4 pilot, if you're shooting for the airlines, or you're just strictly shooting for the pleasure of flying VFR. I do both. And it's interesting flying around the world in a 747. That's technical, but flying VFR, visual flight rules, where you're looking outside, looking for other airplanes, it's an art in itself. It's not, you would think, oh, that's easy, and the flying 7.4 around the world's difficult. I almost look at it the other way completely. You're so handheld when you're in a 7.4 in that environment. When you're out here, it's you that's making the decisions. It's you that's looking for other traffic. It's you that's avoiding the different types of airspace. And again, this is the stuff you'll learn about, but it really is, you're handling everything. When you're flying a 7.4 around the world, there's a lot of people holding your hand. Maybe that's not as easy as that, but I'm just trying to show you that, or explain that, yes, there's some differences. So, but this VFR in itself is an art form, and it's fun. It just is. It's addicting. And so anyhow, I hope this video helped you out. I got to make a phone call here. We got to go ahead and check the ATIS because we're coming up to Payne Field again. So I need to listen to this and see which runways they're landing on.